Gary, I'll pass to you. Okay.
What's that, Barbara?
I'll pass to you.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, folks, we'll start in 1 minute. Okay. Good morning, folks. It's another Coffee Chats with Economic Alliance, Snohomish County. I am the President and CEO of Economic Alliance Snohomish County, Gary Clark. I am excited to have you all here today for another amazing Coffee Chats with us. I have my coffee cup and I am ready to go. So before we get started, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. As always, we ask that you engage, and that means please make sure that you join the conversation via chat, and then additionally add your organization to your name. That way we know when you offer any information that we know what organization you're part of, and we can contribute with you based on that. All right, so housekeeping is over, and now for some very cool opening remarks from Barbara Dean, who is the co-director of Institute for Sustainable Diversity and Inclusion. Barbara, take it away.
All right. Hello, everyone. Let me bring up my slides here. Hold on a second.
Well, Barbara, as you do that, why don't I highlight a little bit more about who you are as you cue yourself up here.
Sure.
So a little bit about Barbara, folks. She's been working with diversity, equity, and inclusion for about 33 years, first as a writer and editor, and then as a training consultant, and now as the DEI Leadership Development Consultant. She's currently the co-director of, as I mentioned, the Institute for Sustainable Diversity and Inclusion, a nonprofit organization that represents the Northwest Diversity Learning Series. So as Barbara cues up, this series is a collaborative employer venture and has been providing a bi-monthly workshop for managers, employees of the Pacific Northwest companies and organizations for 23 years. The beat goes on. Okay, take it away, Barbara.
Thank you, Gary. Good morning, everyone. The beat definitely does go on. Diversity, equity, and inclusion have been a part of my life for quite some time. And, you know, I was thinking last night that in years ago, you know, you didn't see anything about diversity in the news, at least not positive news. And it just rarely got brought up. And today that is not the case. The other day I was listening to KUOW and listening to a wonderful program on Indigenous Day and some of the experiences of Indigenous people in our country and also in other countries. So it's hardly a day goes by that you don't hear something about diversity, equity, and inclusion on the news. So that has changed a great deal in the time that I've been working on these issues. I wanted to talk with you a little bit about inclusion. And so the first idea that I'd like to put out there is that inclusion is a practice. This is an idea that's been put forward by new research, which I happen to be a part of. I'm the associate editor of a book called Diversity at Work, The Practice of Inclusion. And Bernardo Ferdman, who is the senior editor, put this idea together. He's a scholar practitioner in psychology. And so he described inclusion as a practice, and a practice means doing. It involves behavior. You have to do things to bring about inclusion. It doesn't just happen. And the core of inclusion is how people experience it. You can't tell someone they're included. They have to tell you whether they feel included. And the experience of inclusion comes about from this relationship between individuals and the organization. So this graphic here shows you that the experience of inclusion on the part of individuals and groups comes about because of inclusive values, policies, practices, and behaviors. And this is at many different levels, and I'm going to show you those levels in just a minute. So the more you have inclusive values, policies, practice, and behaviors, the more people experience inclusion. So this is inclusion is a systemic and dynamic evolution, and things have to work together so that the experience of inclusion happens. So when we talk about the practice of inclusion, this is a framework for the practice of inclusion. And the idea here is that there are many different levels at which you practice. And it starts first, of course, with the experience of individuals. Do they feel engaged? Do they feel as if they are participating in the work of the organization or the group? Do they feel safe? Do they feel trusted and accepted? And then at the level of inclusive interpersonal behavior, what are the behaviors that you practice with others? Do you seek others' opinions that you work with? Are you curious about why they are here and what matters to them? Do you treat them in ways that signify respect and work with others to come to mutually satisfying solutions? Then at the group and team level, are there inclusive practices, norms, and the collective experience of inclusion? So are you treating everyone with respect? Does everyone have a voice? Are you emphasizing collaboration? And do you have a means to work through conflicts productively and authentically? At the next level are leaders and leadership. So this is where this is an extremely important level, and leaders play a very important role in fostering inclusion. So beyond interpersonal behaviors, leaders have additional responsibilities such as holding others accountable for their behavior and making appropriate connections between organizational imperatives or goals and the mission and vision of the organization and inclusion. So beyond the practices of individual leaders, the approach to leadership that the organization prefers or values plays an important role in the practice of inclusion. So the leadership level is extremely important in making sure that inclusion is practiced throughout. Then you have the organizational level, and here's, of course, where these inclusive policies, practices, and climates come in. The question is there a context in which individual behavior and leadership are displayed and cultivated and interpreted? The organization's culture, its values, norms, and preferred styles, as well as its structures and systems, provide a container in which individuals interact and interpret their experience. So it's if you want to have an inclusive organization, things have to happen at this level. And I always remind people who are very, very interested in recruiting diverse individuals, having diversity as a goal in all of the recruiting and efforts, just to be very clear about what is the container that you are bringing people into. What are the inclusive policies, practices, and the climates that people are going to be welcomed into? And in the years that I've been working in this area, I found that people really focus on recruiting, but fail to focus on the container, the climate that people will come into. And so too often you have a revolving door where people are recruited, but they don't stay long because the climate is not, it's not accepting, it's not welcoming, it's not inclusive. And then finally, at the broadest level of the framework is society. And are there inclusive practices and values and ideologies in society? And of course, right now in our society, we have some problems. There are some difficulties with inclusive at the very top of the society. And leaders are not always expressing inclusive behaviors or inclusive policies. And so that whole whole context, that whole circle, if you will, affects every other circle down the framework. So this is something that we have to pay attention to. One of the things that you can do is you can practice inclusion by choosing inclusive behaviors. You can say hello and greet people. You'd be surprised how often I hear employees tell us that leaders don't greet them. They may get on the elevator with them. Of course, it's been a while since they got on an elevator, but they don't greet them when they see them. So greeting people and recognizing people is the first, the first behavior of inclusion. And then leaning into discomfort when you feel it. You are going to be uncomfortable in some of these situations because that's not what you've been used to. And so lean into discomfort when you feel it, and remain open and be willing to learn from and be influenced from others. Everyone has ideas. Everyone has something to offer, and being open to that. Openly share information and seek transparency. Acknowledge, connect, and engage with others, and be respectful and demonstrate fairness. That's a huge one today. Listen deeply and carefully to others. Can you keep your biases and your assumptions at bay? And of course, we know those biases and assumptions can just creep up on us really fast. So we have to really pay attention to that. And then last of all, just be curious, be interested in others and what their life experience has been. This is a definition of inclusion, and I'm going to tell you where it comes from in a moment. But inclusion is a dynamic state of feeling, belonging. I've got to move my photos here so I can see it all here. They don't want to move. Let me see if I can move them over there. There we go. A dynamic state of feeling, belonging, and operating in which diversity is leveraged and valued to create a fair, healthy, and high-performing organization or community. An inclusive culture and environment ensure equitable access to resources and opportunities for all, and enable individuals and groups to feel safe, respected, heard, engaged, motivated, and valued for who they are. Now, this definition has changed from what it was 5 years ago. So this definition has definitely been influenced by the book that I was associated with and came out in 2014. And this definition was published in 2021. So this definition comes from a model called the Global Diversity and Inclusion Benchmark Standards for Organization Around the World. And I wanted to let you know about this resource. This is a free resource, and you can download it at the website here, the Center for Global Inclusion. And so this is a resource that not only provides some definitions that have been vetted by a large group of people. This particular edition of the Global Diversity and Inclusion Benchmarks was vetted by 114 people around the world. So this is a very good resource to help you think about what am I doing, and what are the systemic issues that I need to pay attention to. So that's all I have. Let's chat about inclusion. So I'll stop sharing. Gary, it's all yours.
All right. Well, thank you, Barbara. So before I get started, I want to announce our amazing group of panelists here, and really want to thank you all for joining us today. First and foremost, the founder of Snohomish County Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Cassandra Perez. Welcome, Cassandra. And then additionally, we have Snohomish County Latino Coalition Leadership, Karina Gasparini. Karina, we can see your beautiful purple background silhouette color going on there. So thank you for joining us. And then last but not least, we have the Family Engagement Liaison, Wendy Massarina. And Wendy, where are you? There you are. Okay. All right, folks, so this is an amazing opportunity for us to engage, but first and foremost, I want to highlight something that is important to note. With this Hispanic Heritage Month, the theme is titled Esperanza, a celebration of Hispanic heritage and hope. And so with that in mind, the goal is to reflect on the great things of the past, knowing that we will have more impact from our community in the future. And then beyond that, I really wanted to highlight and cue this up for our panelists. the actual impact of our Hispanic heritage folks in our general region of Washington. If we just talk about Washington State as a whole, we see the immigration and immigrant population impact. And I want to make sure that everyone knows that this is on an entrepreneurship level. In Snohomish County specifically, if we just talk about our district, we're talking about over 5,000 plus entrepreneurs who have operated in this space. And beyond that, that's a spending power of $2.8 billion. And these are numbers from pre-COVID numbers. And so this is a really huge impact in just the second district. If we talk beyond that and we talk about the overall state, we're talking about an exorbitant amount of impact from our Hispanic population. And I want to make sure that we welcome and engage our panelists in this space. And so panelists, I have a question for you. I'm going to queue up some definitions here. And I want to hear your take on these definitions. Number one, what is Hispanic? What I have here from probably Webster is a definition that describes it as the term as a person who is from or has ancestors from a Spanish-speaking territory or country. The second one is Latino, and this one is defined as a person or a person who is referred to as Latin American or of Latin descent. Ladies, let's start with Cassandra and we'll go to Karina and then Wendy. Give me your thoughts on these definitions.
I think at the very basic level, those are correct, but what you will find and what we continue to learn as we navigate our past and come to terms with the past atrocities that we have experienced as a culture is that it is not very inclusive. So you think about Hispanics, and that does not include Spain. And a lot of us, like myself, have ancestors who originate from Spain. And then you think about Latin America, Hispanic is the one that excludes Brazil because their main language is Portuguese. And then you think about Latinx, Latino, Latina, and all of those come from Latin America, but it excludes Spain, like my ancestors. So we never feel quite inclusive, and none of those terms actually pay tribute to a lot of the indigenous ancestry that we all have within a lot of the Hispanic cultures. Something else that has come up recently is a lot of people don't like the term Latinx either. People use that as a gender neutral term, but it doesn't translate well in Spanish. So you will find that some people actually use Latine with an E at the end so that it is more inclusive of the gender neutrality.
Okay, so I will agree with Cassandra, and I will also include that the definition that we use, at least the people who is from Mexico, is Latino, is everybody that is from Latin America, not Mexico, until Tierra de Fuego, that is Chile and Argentina, including Brazil too. Even then they speak Portuguese, they are considered Latino. And Hispanic is the people who come from Spain. That's how our culture, the Mexican culture, define Latino and Hispanic. That's the term that we use, and we don't include, of course, our indigenous people either. So I really don't like the Latinx term. I don't know why it's not something that I can engage with, or the Latine. I don't understand why we have to go and use that kind of terms. We are Latinos, and we in our language is we are very defined about who is he and she and us, you know, and we don't define by an X. So that is what I think is Hispanic and Latino.
Hi, hello. My name is Wendy Mesarina, and I agree with Cassandra and Karina. I'm Peruvian American. I was born in Peru. I was raised there. So for us, it's a whole different story. I learned about Hispanic, Latino, Latinx, and all those terms when I moved here, actually. Maybe I heard the term Latino growing up, but in Peru, for example, a person that is Hispanic, it has to have some kind of ancestors or being born in Spain or something to do with Europe. Many of the Peruvians are mixed with Europeans, so we might consider Hispanic, but also we see the term Latino for people from all over Mexico, Central America, and South America. And we actually also consider Americans. Believe it or not, when I came here, they say, oh, you're not American. And I say, no, actually I am from South America. So yes, I consider American too. So it's everyone from different countries has a different opinion. I think Cassandra also, she has family from Mexico, and she differ a little bit with Karina, being both from Mexico. I'm Peruvian, but I have a lot of Peruvian people that will, not agree with me. So everyone has different ideas on what is Hispanic and Latino. Now, Latinx, I agree with Cassandra. That's a new term for me. That was created, I think, recently, like maybe a few years ago or a year ago. I never hear about it. And since I work with the Spanish-speaking parents in Marysville for many, many years, I would say 80% of my families are Mexican, and the rest of my families are from Central and South American, some very few from Spain. And I have to be very careful when I use that word. And sometimes I might offend some of my parents, and they say, I'm not Hispanic, or I'm not Latino, or what about Mexican? So you cannot please everyone, but you just try to be inclusive again.
Okay, I love this. This is a great conversation and educational for many of us to hear this context. Barbara, in her opening remarks, mentioned that inclusion is a practice. I would also echo the fact that, and I've mentioned this previously on the chat, one of my favorite athletes of all time is Bill Russell, who lives just in the Puget Sound area, or I think he's selling his home soon. At any rate, he mentioned that inclusion is the best part of any society. Can each of you speak to what we can do to practice on a daily basis this atmosphere of actions and practicing inclusion? Give your thoughts. So we'll go in the reverse, and Wendy, you can start first.
Okay. Thank you again. So as Barbara mentioned, inclusion is practice, right? So it's a daily thing, like in everything, sports and everything else. What I would suggest is that people say, oh, maybe we're going to do this, or we have this plan. And I'm a person that when they say I have this idea, I will do it like the next day. I'm a doer. Sometimes that's a good thing, that's a bad thing, but I'm a doer. And why? Because when you do things, then you see if that works or not. Sometimes that doesn't work, but I'm pretty sure that will work 80% of the time. So why not to try? You're not hurting anyone. So my suggestion for everyone, including businesses, I apply it for schools. I'm still working on it because it's like me trying to convince you to do something or trying to sell you something, and I'm not selling anything. I'm just trying to be inclusive. Inclusion. For me, that will be one word: welcoming, right? So welcoming. If you have a business, make it as a welcome environment. So when you walk in, you can see the word welcome in different languages. And I always give an example. I think they still have it, but if you go to the YMCA in Marysville, they have that word welcome all around the world, the walls in the front entrance. So such a simple thing, when I went there for the first time, I feel like, oh my gosh, that they say welcome in my language, I feel so welcome just with that one word, right? That's just an example. Another idea, sometimes there is not a space to put things on the wall or stuff. So you can have a banner and flags, you know, those miniature flags, and just put it around the entrance of your main building. And then same with other websites or Facebook pages, you know, many of the businesses always have everything in English. And I know we live in the United States and we speak, you know, the main language is English, but we have a high population of Spanish speakers. So if you want to be inclusive and you actually want to grow your business, I highly recommend to make everything in 2 languages. If you make a logo, if you make a flyer, a postcard, a magazine, a newsletter, just make it in 2 languages. If you cannot translate the whole thing, at least make like a summary of it or a page. So that will be my suggestion on that, the inclusion.
All right, Karina.
I want to thank Barbara. That presentation was just on point. One of the big things about the Latino community is that we are warm people. You know, we love to say hi to everybody. Even we don't know them, we say hi to everybody. So that's goal for you to say to your employees or somebody who goes into your business, to say hi to them is really, really important. With that first impression, you're gonna have a client for life, you know, because they are gonna feel like they belong. It's really important for us. We are warm people, we are happy people, and we try to be in touch with where we feel well received. Is something really, really important for us. Inclusion and is a word that so many people use, and sometimes I feel like it doesn't have a real value to our community, because you can translate everything, but if the people who is in touch with your client or with your community doesn't engage with them, it doesn't matter that you have everything translated in every language. You know, it's so important. Like when they say, if you have a press release or you have something to say to your community, just make a summary of what we can say to them, and we can send the link to the article or the link to the website or whatever you are using. And also to have the knowledge that you need to do an interpretation that is cultural for us. You know, don't use Google, please. Use somebody who is who speaks Spanish too, and he can connect with the community. So because Wendy, I, and Cassandra and I, we are Mexicans, but Wendy is from Peru, so we use different terms for different things, but the culture is the same. It's a warm culture.
Love it, love it. Thanks for that context. Cassandra?
I would echo everything Karina and Wendy said. I think in Barbara's presentation, one of the things that resonated with me the most is we can all say that we are inclusive, but until the people you are reaching out to tell you that they feel it, it doesn't really mean too much. And I think the biggest thing that we can do is dive into those discomforts, like Barbara said, because it's not always comfortable. It's not comfortable putting something out in a new language that you don't understand. It's not comfortable asking somebody, what is your preferred term for, you know, Hispanic or Latino, Latina? It's not always comfortable, and it's not comfortable for the person receiving it either. We're just, it's vulnerability, having to come out and say these things. So really diving into that discomfort and leaning in and asking those questions, being vulnerable enough to do that, are gonna mean so much to us. As Karina said, we are a very welcoming culture. everybody's family. I can't tell you which relatives are actually my aunts by blood and which ones are, just really close friends of the family. That's how we are. So really diving into all of that and making people feel welcome and not just saying that we're welcoming and inclusive is important.
All right, all right. Wendy, you raised your hand? Did you want to chime in here?
Yes, just one more thing I wanted to add. Thank you, Cassandra and Karina. I know these two ladies from a long time ago, and they are just amazing. Everything they say is like, yep, yeah, I agree with everything. Just one more thing I wanted to add. Sometimes, as Karina mentioned, you don't have to translate everything in another language if the person that is the face of your business is not welcoming. I have experienced not only in businesses, but in schools that we have the languages provided, we have the tools, we have a machine to translate, we have interpreters there, but the face of the school, if they are not welcoming, if they don't have the heart, the families won't engage, the families won't come, and the families won't trust you. The parents won't just, be there for you. So, and I also have examples of staff that are the main person in the school that don't speak any Spanish whatsoever. But those people with that heart will make things possible. I have two of my favorite secretaries. They don't speak a word of Spanish, but man, those families love the school. They do every event with them, coffee with the principal, they help them. She's super engaged, and she has the heart for it. So that was just one more thing.
All right, it looks like we already have a few comments coming into the chat. And so I want to make sure that you all get to address some of these. One is from Rebecca at Snow PUD. Basically, when she was teaching English as a second language, and had some considerations about what phrases or terms to use. She says saying Hispanic because there's no place called Hispania. Can you all speak to that as far as what is the appropriate phrasing? And she basically says, should you use Spanish, Portuguese, Peruvian, Brazilian? So I know we spoke on this a little bit earlier, but if you could opine a little deeper on that, and we'll start with Cassandra.
Yeah, I think it's okay to be specific. And that's going to start those conversations that I talked about earlier, asking people what their preference is. I think what's beautiful about asking people what is your preferred term, where do you come from, is a great way to start those conversations and start to learn about other cultures, because you'll see that even within Mexico, a lot of the cultures are very different. In northern Mexico, traditions are different than in southern Mexico. So I think that is absolutely okay. And it's a great way to start the conversations and learn a little bit more about the people you're engaging with, whether they be employees of yours or customers.
All right, Wendy, you'll chime in. We lost one of our panelists for a moment, so you get to chime in.
So reading the question. So yeah, for example, I have here, when I moved here, a person asked me, are you Spanish? Because I speak Spanish, right? So if I want to be specific with that question, I am not from Spain, so no, I'm not Spanish, right? I'm Peruvian American. In Peru as well, we have 3 different regions, like the coast, the mountains, and the jungle. And then people from the north, people from the Andes, people from the south. So, and we also have our different dialects. So as Cassandra mentioned, it's good to ask questions and just learn from them. We prefer people to ask first than just assuming. I don't get offended with anything at this point, but some people will get really offended. So just, be very careful and very aware of the culture that you work with.
All right. Let's shift gears a little bit here. Let's talk about Snohomish County itself. What do you want to see improve in Snohomish County as far as inclusion goes. And I see Karina's jumped back in. Welcome back. Really, we want to know specifically Snohomish County. What can we do better? What are we doing great at? And what do you see here in the county itself? So Karina, you just jumped back in. I'm going to put you on the spot and ask, what do you see for Snohomish County? What can we improve on, and what are we doing well, and what can we do better?
Whoa.
It looks like she might still have some technical difficulties. So I'm going to throw it to Cassandra to answer that question. We'll get Karina back.
I think starting conversations is really important. Acknowledging and understanding how much growth there has been within the Hispanic community here in Snohomish County. I can't wait for the new census data to come out. I'm a census geek. I love looking at that stuff because it's going to give you a good little snapshot of what it is that we're experiencing and where we are seeing that growth. And one of the places that we are continuously seeing growth is within the Hispanic population. So starting those conversations, having more programming and events that are bilingual or even just in Spanish. Something I would love to see coming in a little bit more are those programs that are just in Spanish. And if you have people who want to attend in English, we can have an interpreter who can translate to English rather than Spanish, so that it's not always the Hispanic and Spanish first language people who are experiencing that. So that is something I would love to see, is increased programming that is either bilingual or completely in Spanish, and people just learning more about the Hispanic culture. I think there's a lot of confusion with some of the things. I think the terminology is a great example of that. So really leaning in and starting those conversations are really going to be what's going to put us in the next level.
All right, Wendy, any additional thoughts?
Yeah, so I agree with Cassandra about the Spanish-speaking events. Many of my families, they do speak English and Spanish. Some of my families don't speak any English whatsoever. So if you do an event, even with an interpreter, they might come, but they really, really feel comfortable if they listen to their native language. When you use an interpreter, your meetings, your presentations might last a little longer. There is 2 ways to do interpreting, like simultaneously, that is right away, and then you wait for the person to talk and then you repeat after. So those 2 things you always have to have in consideration. And I highly recommend that if you do classes, events, trainings, conferences, bring interpreters. Put on the flyer, if you need an interpreter, request it ahead of time so you can make sure that they are there for those families. And if you have the budget and the opportunity and the time to do the same kind of event, meeting, training, conference in Spanish, that will be even better. The families will participate. I consider myself fluent in Spanish. That's my native language. And just to give you an example, I moved here when I was 31 years old. If you ask me, I have a book, I want you to read it, and you say Spanish or English, I will choose Spanish, even though I speak and I understand English very well. So just something to consider as well.
All right, Karina, we're going to try you again if you'd like to dive in on this.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, and I would like to also add to what Wendy said. Sometimes our families don't have, they don't really know if they're gonna be able to go to your event. So I will add, please have someone who is a translator on site, because you, if you do that, you're gonna have also more people showing up. Sometimes you have to remember that our community has 2-3 works. Mom is working, dad is working, and everybody is pitching in at the home. So sometimes it's very difficult to make a decision to go to an event in advance or planning 1 month ahead or even sometimes a week because you don't know your schedule at work. So you don't know if you're going to be there. Sometimes they are really afraid to say, I need somebody to do the translation for me. And one time I got a small confrontation with someone in the school district because they told me, well, when we do an event, if we don't have food, the Latino community doesn't go. That was really hurtful to me because it was another Latina saying that. And I say, well, you have to understand that sometimes the families have 7 people in one house and you have little ones. You don't have just the one who is going to high school or who is going to the college. You have more people with you. So sometimes you have to give something to be able to engage with the families because they don't have the time or the resources to have a babysitter watching 4 kids and then go with the guy who wants to go to the college. Just be inclusive in every aspect of our lives, not just the language. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. I want to make sure that we highlight a question on business a little deeper. And I think, Cassandra, you hit on this, and Wendy, you as well, Karina as well. But just a little deeper on that. What are some aspects of your experience with business that you feel are opportunities as far as inclusion, and some that are a hindrance as far as inclusion currently? So we'll go back to Cassandra with the start.
I think a lot of businesses are very well intentioned when it comes to inclusion, but implicating those things into practice is very hard. And I think the most important thing when it comes to businesses trying to perform outreach for, I think, any minority community, and I hate the word minority, but any of those communities that they're trying to perform that outreach to, is to engage with them. And a lot of times, somebody mentioned it in the comments, instead of getting them to come to you, you're going to have to go to them. And I think it's really important to do that and to hear directly from the community members, especially the community that you're trying to engage with, and hear their perspective. Don't assume what they want and what's going to make them feel included. Ask them, and they're more than willing to share that with you. So I think that's the biggest thing. Is I know we're all very well intentioned when it comes to some of these DEI practices, but we can't forget to directly connect with and ask the communities what it is that they want to see from you.
Okay, let's go to Karina next. Thoughts on business, opportunities and challenges.
I think Cassandra's right on point. It's sometimes it's very difficult to be able to engage our community, and every community has a different aspect also in their lives. So don't use the same approach for one to another. Just try to educate yourself about the community that you want to reach. Educate yourself about what are the necessities that community has. And if you as a business have that connection, at least for the Latino community, like I said before, you're going to have a client for life. He's going to be with you forever because he is going to feel welcome. And he's going to recommend your business to another people, to another members in the community. So it's really important, the approach that you have in the first. You have less than a minute to have the best impression in the community, whatever community is. But for us Latinos, if that minute is really, really important for us, because we're going to go back to you every time. If the approach is, if it doesn't matter that we don't speak the same language, if I feel welcome, I will come back to your business, and I will come back every time, and I will recommend your business to anyone who wants to have the same approach.
All right, go ahead, Wendy.
Can you repeat again the question?
Yeah, sure. So what are some of the opportunities for businesses? Give some example of how you feel about opportunities that businesses can continue to engage on, or challenges that you see. So speak from your experience, if you like, Wendy.
Okay. Yeah. Just an example. There was a restaurant. I won't say the name, but I used to go there a lot. I liked the place, but I didn't feel welcome. And as I mentioned before, I don't get offended easily, even though people sometimes might be either rude or just don't know, or they might be racist. But I have a warm heart, so I try my best to sometimes educate that person, want it or not, with love. I remember we're best friends now. I became friends with this owner. I told her, hey, I like your business, but I really don't feel welcome. You know, I feel that you don't either like me. It might be a miscommunication. She's like, oh, no, we are just busy and stuff. I say, well, that reflect as you don't like me. So I really want to come here. So how can we do this? You know, and she's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. That little conversation opened a different story, a different chapter of that business. After that conversation with the owner, she asked me to please decorate her business for a specific month. And I brought everything from my home, my special pashminas, my colorful ponchos, signs in the native language, in Quechua, because Spanish is not a Peruvian main language, is Quechua. And we became friends. So sometimes if you find people like me that don't give up, you might be lucky, and then, you know, have these other cultures come into your business. But if you are not aware of that, you might lose a lot of clients. And the Hispanic community is big. So if you have one person, like Cassandra and Karina mentioned, if you have one person with a good experience, they will recommend it. I recommend my friends to go to that place all the time. Come, it's a good place. It's very, you know, it's very good food. So just be aware of the welcoming environment, even if you're busy. Everyone is busy. But yeah, that's just one example. And then have or try to have a bilingual person in your staff. And the main office, if it's a business, have a one person that is bilingual or at least speaks Spanish. It doesn't have to be Latino or Hispanic, or Mexican or Peruvian. It can be a person that it was born here and they learn the language and they want to reach out to other Spanish speakers. So
Thank you, Wendy. That was very impactful for me. Cassandra, it looks like you have your hand up. Go ahead and dive in.
Just to add a little bit more, I think Wendy's story is really important for all of us to hear, because what is that one thing that made the difference is that the owner was receptive to the feedback. We can't always be so defensive when somebody says, this isn't working for me. That's something that in my advocacy for more inclusion with the Hispanic community, I find sometimes people are very reluctant. No, we are inclusive. We have this, we have that. Your intent is good, your impact is not. So really being open to that feedback, and instead of closing up and becoming defensive, opening yourself to it and learning from the experience of the customer is really important here. So I would really echo Wendy's experience and say, be open to that feedback, because it could mean the difference between growing your business exponentially and staying very limited on your growth.
Awesome. Okay, we have one question in the chat that I wanted to get to from Madison Vasquez, who is part of, looks like Downtown Everett Association. A question about the Washington Main Street community recently shared a new business guide as well as a Spanish version of the guide. However, they quickly found that the guide was written from a very Eurocentric mindset. And so the question really is, or the comment is, do you have any advice on connecting with Hispanic and Latino entrepreneurs, making them feel welcome? And so some of this is tied to your answers that you previously shared. But if anyone wants to just tackle this one, and then we'll move quickly to a few other questions.
I would like to say, please make any documents that you translate or do in Spanish, send it to someone and check that document before publishing anything, please, anything, whatever you want to do. If you have a friend who speaks Spanish, or do you know an organization, or do you know someone who is a native Spanish speaker, please send that document to them. Sometimes, I don't know, you hire a company or whatever it is to do these translations, and when we read it, it doesn't make any sense. You know, it's like they took the whole page and put it in Google, and we don't even know what are you trying to say to us. So it's really, really important, whatever you do. If you have friends, well, we have here, Cassandra's here, the Snohomish County Latino Coalition is here for you. Please send a document and ask a friend, can you read this to me? And is that okay to publish or not? It's really important.
I would definitely echo what Karina says there. It is extremely important. I've had this experience in some former employment where somebody brought the document to me after we had thousands of copies made. And I said, I don't know what you're saying. This isn't, I like Karina said, I believe they used Google Translate. So you paid a lot of money for somebody to just use Google Translate. There are things in Spanish that just don't translate into English, or vice versa. So you have to really have somebody who knows the language well, a native speaker even better, so that they can make sure that the message you're trying to send is very clear. I think it's also very important for those native speakers and fluent Spanish speakers to be able to check some things, because a missing accent on a word makes the world of a difference. Sometimes those words aren't pretty if they're missing something and aren't professional to publish. So be very careful with that. I also saw how can we connect with Hispanic and Latino entrepreneurs. I think partnerships are really key here. They don't always know where to go. They don't always understand the outreach that you are trying to engage with them. So connecting with your child's school, like with the equivalent of Wendy at your child's school, connecting with Karina or myself so that we can really help you make those connections can be really critical. And we're also going to help you navigate that so that you leave a good lasting impression, and then they keep coming back to you.
Yeah.
This is Rich. We're running out of time here. So what I'd like to do is make sure that each of you get a chance to give some closing remarks. I want to ask if you want to give those remarks in whatever language is comfortable for you. I think that would be advantageous for all of us here, a benefit to all of us. But I'd also like to just thank each of you for taking the time to dive in here. I know this is one conversation and we need tons more to actually continue this space. So we'll continue to try to have this as an opportunity in series going forward. With that said, I want to make sure that we go with Wendy. If you're, I don't want to put you on the spot. We'll go with your closing remark first. We'll go with Karina second, and then Cassandra, since you just spoke, we'll go with you to wrap it up. All right, Wendy, take the floor.
Okay, well, I want to thank you everyone for listening and for being so open to learn about our culture. I'm willing to help you all. I'm gonna send my business card, and I have a business card in Spanish, so I'm gonna give you some homework. It's very easy. So my email, my phone number is there. And then on the back of the card, there is a little phrase that says, if you need an interpreter, please use this information, and that's for the families. So just to share with you something that you can do with your clients, have those available in the main office. And something for people to remember about my culture is that remember that people that come here sometimes, they are actually just them. They don't have other relatives next to them. They don't have the aunties, the grandparents. It's just the mom, dad, kids, or the mom and kid, or me, for example. I have me, my daughter, and my old dad, 84 years old, live with me. So be very warm and welcoming with the Hispanic community. We have so many stories, very similar from each other, but we are very family oriented. For us, there is no word as extended family. I learned that term here. When they say, so where is your extended family? I'm like, what is extended family? I didn't even know. My aunties, I have 7 aunties that are on my mom's side and 1 uncle. And I have 7 aunties and uncles on my dad's side. So we have a huge family in Peru. They are not my aunties or my uncles. They are my second moms and my second dads. We are that close. Same with my cousins. I don't call them cousins. I call them sisters and brothers. So be very warm, be very caring and loving and kind to our culture. If you know us, if you know our story, you will understand, and you might change, your life for something better. So I know everyone is trying to reach out to our community, and I'm telling you, our community is big. We are very, even if we are not family, if something happened to us, everyone stop what they are doing and we help each other. These 2 ladies here are one of the busiest ladies in the whole state. If something happened, I reach out to her and she's like, she has the question, the answer in right away. So our community, we are not related, but we're very close. So if you reach out to us, we'll have an answer for you. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Wendy. Go ahead, Karina, please.
Well, I just want to add, if you need help, please let us know. There's Snohomish County Latino Coalition. We have more than 100 organizations in the coalition, and we are here to help you become part of our community too. And remember, to say hi to someone is gold for us as Latinos. You will get us forever if you say hi to us and if you are welcome to us. That will be my remark. Just be kind and try to understand that we come from different backgrounds, and we need you as much as you need us. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Karina. All right, Cassandra, you have the final word here.
Well, first, thank you to Gary and Economic Alliance Snohomish County for allowing us this platform so that we can further engage with our business community here in Snohomish County and really get us to that next level. I really want for you guys to know that the Hispanic community is here, and we want to engage with you. And we love story time. We love sharing about our cultures and traditions. There's nothing more that we love. I hope you have a couple of coffee pots ready if you're going to engage with us for some of those stories, because we love to share, and we love to be able to tell you about where it is that we come from and what it is that we value and hold dear to us. So I encourage everybody to rip down those barriers, break down those walls, and start those conversations. Start them now. We are all hurting with this pandemic, and we are all trying to come into recovery. Find a new business. Find your local little pastry shop that you've never gone into. Go in, start a conversation, meet somebody new, and learn what it is that they have to bring to the community. I echo everything that Wendy and Karina said. We are always here to help, and we are always happy to help. Let us know day or night. I know these ladies are up late at night like I am, trying to get all of this work done because there's a lot of work to do, and we're always happy to share with you guys. So reach out anytime. We're always here.
All right, ladies, thank you so much for your presentation. I think this was very much heartfelt. So we're out of time here. I just want to highlight October 14th at 9 a.m. is our public officials event. And so please, if you've been invited to that, please show up. It'll be a great opportunity. I also wanted to make sure that I highlight that October 19th at 8:30 a.m. another coffee chats moment will be how to engage the military community. One final note here is really quickly, in one community that I worked in, we had a 500-year flood, and a lot of the workers were Hispanic and Latino. And they actually, there was actually a language barrier between them. And so the assumption from the government was anyone who speaks Spanish. And they found out that there was a Quiche language, about 200 or so folks in that community that they could not find someone to translate, even in the Hispanic and Latino community. And so it took a while for the state to even find someone to translate. So I think this conversation sheds some light on not making any assumptions that there's a blanket opportunity or way to communicate with folks, but really dig deep and try to build those relationships. So with that being said, if Katie, if you don't mind, I know we're a little bit over time, but we have to do this in solidarity with this being an amazing presentation. I want to thank you all, but if we could all raise our coffee cups that we have, even if you have water. Katie, if you can bring us to screen to show all of these folks who are still on, and we'll move that. Yes, show your coffee cups. Thank you, ladies, for an amazing presentation. We look forward to engaging you in the future. And thank you, everyone who stayed on for Coffee Chats with Economic Alliance, Snohomish County. Have an amazing Tuesday. Thank you.